All right. Well, I am here with the death metal guy on a cold pre-solstice night to interview a band we last spoke to, or I last spoke to in the summer of 2021, which feels like a long time ago now. When I spoke to them, they were Cromlech. Now they have been, through blood and fire, reborn again as Mormegil, the King's Field of epic heavy metal. Members of Mormegil, mighty hails to you, and could you please introduce yourselves for our listeners?
Hails right back at you. I'm Roman, guitar, vocals, and songwriting for ex-Cromlech and now Mormegil.
I'm Kevin, vocalist, primary songwriter for everything we've ever done. Thanks for having us on.
Oh no, we're starting already.
Yep. Next member. All right. How about the bassist?
Brandon Hales. Play bass, and I co-write all the songs with Kevin.
And last but not least,
I'm Jake. I do nothing but play drums and drink beer.
Damn.
Perfect.
That was exquisite. That pop was.
That sounded like a
something.
cork. It was what
Only
was
the
that?
finest champagne.
Nice.
No, it's a homebrew beer.
Hinge bottles.
It's a Hinge bottle. Some homebrew. A beer that didn't turn out that good, but it's got alcohol, so that's all I need.
Been there.
Spoken like a true Canadian heavy metal legend.
Yeah, you got to brew it at home because you don't want to get it from the government store. So, all right. So, basically, when we last spoke, you were Cromlech and you were on the ascending path to your second and sort of definitive statement, Ascent of Kings, which came out finally earlier this year. And then it was this titanic effort. When we last spoke to you, you had been recording it and finessing it for like 7 years and performing it in various places. And I think the writing, in some ways, was even older. That finally came out. And then when we might have expected it to like transition into, the new era of Cromlech, suddenly Cromlech is sort of... Cromlech burns on its pyre and rises anew. So could you explain to us exactly what has happened?
Well, basically, we spent, as you said, a lot of the songwriting goes back pretty far. I mean, there are parts of Turambar that go back to 2013, 2014, specifically the middle of the song, and even Kevin's vocal lines. They're not just like the riffs and the drums and everything else. So some of those melodies and lyrics have stayed the same since that point. So it's been a very long and laborious process. And we did a lot of fine-tuning along the way. We did a lot of refinement. We added things, took things away, changed things. It was really a long process, and the the prep for recording was pretty intensive right there, just laying down all the ghost tracks and everything, and then eventually recording the music itself. And it's a long process because we all are, well, I mean, heck, we're in our 30s. Kevin's got a family. Jake's got one too, and it takes like and Baron as well, and it's like it takes time to get everybody together, to make it out to practice regularly, especially if you got to travel distances to do it. And the fact of the matter is that that really stretched out the length of the recording process, and then, well, we'll get onto the mixing and production process after that. But needless to say, it was a long time period. I actually was handling it a lot better than Brendan and Kevin right there. They were dying during the mixing. they were
was the mixing a battle between the members of Cromlech?
That's why we split up.
Was it? I don't think we were arguing between ourselves that much.
No, not particularly.
No,
just behind your back.
Oh yes, that's right. Yes, well, joke's on you. I was the one that went out there at the end, so it was all my final product. So
okay, so the mixing was a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But so you release the record and then you transform.
Yes. So we released the record and then we we're like, we got to do a show because we haven't done a show in forever, and we had everything on hold because of the mixing and the recording process and all of that, and like I'm like, okay, let's get back into gigging, let's get back into practicing, and we finally managed to, after some time, book that show back during last summer, which was an awesome show. It was a fantastic show. It was everything a Cromlech show should have been and could have been. Definitely and easily the best show we've ever played. Really just to get into to not get into it too much. I mean, after a certain point, Baron decided that he didn't want to continue with the project anymore. I think distance, family, other things like that, and he's been our friend or battle brother for a long time, and it was definitely not easy hearing that at the time, but we all resolved that we wanted to keep going on after that. So we continued, and we decided that since Baron was the official founder of the band, there was no way we could continue under the original name. So we had to basically reforge the moniker, as it were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the blade that was broken shall be forged again. Speaking of which, name of the band. Please explain.
Oh, okay, that's an interesting one right there.
Yeah.
It's because we were going on and on about names, trying to figure out what we wanted to call the new project, and we couldn't settle on anything. At first, we were even thinking about harkening back to one of the old demo names, and what's going to be a instrumental track on the next album we were going to call the band Ancestral Doom, but then everybody's like, too many ties to the old Cromlech name right there, and we just kept thinking, going through, Kevin and I are very much into the Tolkien mythos and everything involving Turambar, so I'm like, I have to name it after the Black Sword of Turin, and so I picked Mormegil. Now the funny thing is, Mormegil's not even actually the proper name. It's Girthang. It's Girthang, but Mormegil is the moniker that Turin is given when he's in Nargothrond and sallying forth doing his raids on the orcs.
It's his elf name.
Yeah, exactly. I forget if that's a Sindarin name. Yeah, but it means Black Sword. Cool. So it kind of came out to the same deal anyway. So mistakenly, I thought that was the name of the sword at the time, but it ended up being a great name anyways, and we just all kind of clicked on it. I think Kevin was pretty into it almost immediately.
Oh, absolutely.
And yeah, I mean, you guys, I probably told you guys this already, but Terminus is also named after a sword, right? From the Terminus Est from the Gene Wolfe Book of the New Sun.
Oh, okay. Not as familiar with that.
Oh, you guys would like it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, cool.
Anyway, so I don't know, death metal guy. Where any other sort of bio stuff we should talk over before we get into revisiting Ascent of Kings from the other side?
I guess just broadly, I'm sure that we're going to talk about the new incarnation more in a little while, but I think off the cuff, just for the listeners, you're coming from the legacy of Cromlech, which has, a lot of weight behind it. Do you guys think of Mormegil as like a direct continuation, like sonically or artistically, or are you guys trying to pivot into something a little bit different now?
There's certainly no intention to pivot in a different direction. It's essentially a continuation of Cromlech. We will end up playing Cromlech material live. We are going to we're working with the material that we were writing before the split happened. So that's all gonna keep going. That being said, I mean, it will naturally happen that I always had a strong dislike for side projects because I felt that everything you want to say musically should be you should be able to say it in one band. Like classical composers didn't have side projects; they just wrote music, right? My exception to that has always been when I'm working with somebody else on something. That brings a different dynamic to things. They influence you differently, and that's when a side project can be justified. And that's why I joined Cromlech in the first place, because Baron was kind of like this other influence on how I was doing things. And I honestly, as in my songwriting, it really changed a lot because of him. I grew to appreciate and do much more visceral or conventional things than I otherwise would have done strictly in Into Oblivion. So I guess what I'm trying to say by that is that because Baron's no longer in the band, I think that I guess the ghost of his presence will always be there, but he's not going to be there presently as an influence on anything that I'm doing, so that will naturally just kind of change how the sound is going to come out. But it's growing out of Cromlech anyways, so the next album's going to be what it's going to be.
I think that, if I may for a second, just as kind of as the main songwriter.
Yes.
I
know.
I think just someone who's...
I defer to you.
Right. Yeah, thank you. As someone who's kind of sitting back and watching the songs develop, I think that things are a little bit more melodic. I could be wrong about that, but when I listen to what Roman's producing and the videos they send and the audio files, I always think, wow, this is Roman really embracing a sense of melodicism. Not to say that there wasn't melody in the Cromlech stuff, but I think it is a little bit different. So, that's my 2 cents in that.
Let's hear from Brandon and Jacob about that. They've been so quiet. My sweet boys.
They're asleep.
What do you want to know about the recording process, about the transition to Mormegil?
Jake's just drunk. Jake's passed out drunk.
Yeah, Jacob and Brandon, how do you guys feel about how the new material is shaping up and how it relates back to the old Cromlech material?
Yeah, I fully agree with Roman. I was about to just right off the bat say, yes, I do think we're a direct continuation of Cromlech following in the legacy. Like Roman said, yeah, the direction might change when we have a different guitarist now with us. So he'll bring different influences to the table, different techniques, I guess.
Yeah, I think that for me, I think the spirit lives on. But yeah, there'll definitely be a little bit of a difference just naturally because of Baron not being in the band anymore, contributing. But the spirit lives on regardless.
Who's the new guitarist? Okay. Is that a part of your existing circle?
Oh, you'll find out.
I only have 2 words for you.
Yeah, we have 2 words.
2 words. Samurai Cop.
Bingo.
2 words.
So the guy
Dave
from
Mustaine.
Yosuke from Nuclear War Now?
Okay, wow. Well, you'll see. You'll see. It all makes sense when it's all tied together.
All right.
So with that, let's talk a little bit about Ascent of Kings, a record that probably provoked some of the most intense debate we've ever had on Terminus, with a saucy role reversal that probably a lot of the listeners didn't anticipate, where I was super enthusiastic and the black metal guy was a little bit more critical about it. I still think it's one of the best records of the year. I really treasure that record. And then black metal guy, you said you've been revisiting it a little bit lately?
Yeah, well, I mean, I wanted to re-listen for this, and also at a different time in my own life. I think when we reviewed it, I knew I would. It was obvious. There's so much on Ascent of Kings that, despite my criticisms, I think I was even then I was willing to sit with it and see how it would change over time, if that makes sense, right? There was a lot to ponder there. So maybe some of the things I thought about it initially would turn out to not, to have been wrong, or just to not matter as much, or I hear new sense in it over time. So I've been going back to it. I don't have any definite verdict yet, but as I said back then, I was sort of trying to I wanted to I wanted to press Cromlech hard on it out of my respect for them as artists, but at the same time, it's obviously a tremendous feat in its own right, whatever complaints I have about it. Right, so it's so I've been going back to listening to it, enjoying it more, I think, but I don't want to make any like final pronouncements or whatever. But yes, it was divisive, and we had it out, and it was good sport.
Yeah. I think it's the longest review we've ever done. Still,
it was like a 6-hour review, man.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. How do you talk about a record that's 2 hours long? It's.
So would you say that you have a list of grievances about the record?
I think the grievances were aired then. I assume that you guys have a list of grievances about the grievances.
Yeah, well...
no, I don't. I agree with you. The album's terrible, man. Oh.
Brandon thought it was going to be a failure from the beginning.
Yeah. No, I every time I played the bass, I said, man, the black metal guy's going to hate this. This rules.
Well, so in the wake of the laborious process to actually get the record across the finish line, was the upon getting to the completed product, was it just like a final like sigh of relief just to finally have the fucking thing done? Or,
I did my drum
lingering
tracks.
Questions about it.
I did my drum tracks in like 3 days. I had to wait for these guys to finish 2 years. This was a great relief.
Which is,
to be perfectly honest... Oh, okay, Kevin, go ahead.
I will take full credit for the fact that I added about 8 or 9 months of recording time to this just because I don't live in Toronto and I have to commute and I have a family. Okay. So finding time to come out and do 2 hours of recording wasn't always an easy thing to do. So I would say my vocals took, in terms of time, maybe 20, 23 hours, Roman. But I would say over the course of months, it was maybe 6 to 8 months of me coming down every other Saturday and putting my parts down. So I definitely was part of the problem here.
Oh, and here's the other thing, too. It was very much like, we obsessed over every, like, line and syllable and everything like that. So like while he was here, like he was he like we were riding him while he was here, man. It's like
however, it's funny with that said, of all the recording processes that I've been through, this was definitely the most comfortable. Like Ave Mortis was, I went in there and I'm like, what am I doing? I have no clue what's going on, and Roman's just staring at me with like these giant eyes, like I'm gonna kill you if you don't hit this note. And it was a little bit better for Iron Guard. However, I will say with Iron Guard, I think I had to re-record all the vocals because Roman was like, no, you don't sound like you're singing enough. So I had to redo the vocals for that with him staring at me. So that was really uncomfortable. Myth and Stigma was a little bit better because I think I wrote some of the vocal melodies for Myth and Stigma. But so by the time I got to this record, I was like, okay, I really got to relax, and there was a lot of laughter. But you guys rode me and made sure that things were they were good. But it was definitely the best recording process that I'd been through. But I never want to do it again.
All right, I will take full credit for the fact that I'm very bad at creating a hostile work environment for Kevin.
We all progressed as musicians by Roman's glare that we fear.
Oh man, I'm not maybe in the way some people are, but I am a bit of a ridiculous perfectionist in what I expect sometimes. So,
well, what, it pushes us to be better. So I wouldn't be the vocalist I am today if it wasn't for you pushing me. So.
Oh, okay. Well, don't worry. I'm gonna bully you more next time.
Oh, last time we talked about how, for listeners who didn't listen to the last interview, which they should, some of the context for this is that in the past they forced Kevin to hit such a high note that he damaged his vocal cords.
That's actually true.
So almost true. It was when we were covering Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath live, or maybe I don't even think we played.
No, it was in the jam space.
No,
we never played that live.
Oh, yeah, brutal.
Yeah, it didn't go well.
Oh yeah, there was that incredibly high note in the verse of that, right?
Yeah. So that set me back about, I'd say, almost 6 weeks. 6 to 8 weeks. Thanks a lot.
We had to settle for a National Acrobat cover instead.
Which one?
I thought that was a Metal Archives reviewer.
So for comparison, I remember during when we were recording Iron Guard, it was Lair of Doom. Kevin, do you remember the line?
Oh, I don't.
It was.
I know what you're talking about. I don't remember.
Yeah, it was Venomous Thief.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, and it took like 48 takes or something like that. Dude, you were getting so mad.
Yeah, that happens once in a while.
Kevin gets mad once in a while.
No. Once in a while.
Yeah, and we can't forget Bondage.
Oh no.
Oh yes. Yeah. Trying to sing. No. Yeah.
That was a Shadow
Flame. Bondage.
Yeah.
There's always like one part of a song or one part of a record that for whatever reason it just can't do it. Oh, we're talking about the part in Turambar, Roman, you had mentioned earlier today.
Yeah.
The middle section there, and I've tried to hit this part. I hit it in the studio pretty easily, I'd say. But I would try to do it live, and I remember storming out of the studio and like slamming the door because I just couldn't hit it when in the context of a live session with the guys. And even now, I still can't do it. Roman has to do it live and has to do it in practice, so which is great because it's pressure off me. So
yeah, there we go. So I mean, for reference sake, it's that one part in Turambar where when you guys were discussing the album. You were mentioning where it sounds like Kevin is like straining at the upper range of his limit, which he is.
Yeah, toward the end.
Yeah, that part he recorded it very easily in the studio, but I'll tell you right now, yeah, exactly. When we tried to practice that or play that live, that was always like that was a hard one to do.
Yeah, it's just too much. There's a lot of lyrics in that part, and trying to make sure I'm breathing properly and having enough left to do that, I can't do it live. So.
And you know, if I'm being honest here too, and like let's just be sincere about the section. Like, I don't know. I know this sometimes from performing music in various contexts that like especially singing. If a particular part is very emotional, and that part is, it can make it a little bit more difficult to do properly.
Yeah.
In a live setting. I think that's definitely a part of that.
Because you just feel
it's a mental thing too. Now I've tried to hit it for 8 years now, and I still can't do it. And at this point, I'm just like, it's a mental block. Forget it. Roman, you do it.
It's the no. I've had that experience. When I play live, sometimes there's like certain riffs or guitar fills that I'll dread, and I spend an entire song just dreading that moment, and I usually fuck it up as a result.
Yeah,
I can relate.
That's funny because I think the very first moment when I kick in when I'm singing, or not after Roman does the whole choir part in the beginning of Samaria, and I kick in afterwards, the timing there, I dread that live. I dreaded starting that at the end when we recorded as well. It was just one of those moments as well that was hard for me to just get that. I think it's like 9.5 beats. I don't know. It just really
there's a weird pickup there, right?
Yeah, it is weird. It's like on a half beat or something, and it, I think I hit it in the studio. Okay, I had to redo it. I think, Rowan, I redid that twice or 3 times to get that. But I know live. No, it's okay. I mean, it sounds fine on the record, but I know live, I'm sure I always mess it up. I have no doubt.
So, yeah, well, when we play live, we get so swept up in the energy that it kind of doesn't matter. The mistakes don't matter at that point. Also, just quickly on Samaria, I wanted to say, Black Metal Guy, you talking about that whole section there is sounding like an Amoebic song was actually a really cool reference because I was completely just trying to riff off Celtic Frost and Hellhammer right there, but we all love Amoebics too. And again, Amoebics is like adjacent territory, so that's a cool like subconscious influence you picked up on right there.
Sick, man. Thanks. Yeah, I'm glad. I figured you guys loved Amoebics too. So they're so close to. I mean, in a way, the true heirs of Amoebics all ended up segmented in different genres from Crust, and obviously Solstice's New Dark Age is one place you go from Amoebics.
Oh, 100%. Rich Walker loves Amoebics, man.
Yeah. No, he remains a kind of crusty.
For sure. It's crazy to think that guy played in Sore Throat back in the day.
yeah. Well, he recorded a new one too. Just put it out on Bandcamp. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. But anyway, so getting into the mechanics of the record, then, one question for you guys would be, and because we were just talking with Kevin about the vocals, one thing would be, and the relationship between the lyrics and the song structures. So I remember, for instance, there was a riff I complained about a lot, on Sumeria, where after that initial amoebic section, you light through a series of majestic solstice epic doom passages that sort of spill into one another, and then there's a Queen riff.
I knew you were going to bring this up. I knew you were going to bring this up. I was going to bring it up.
Let me preface it. One thing I want to say on re-listening, I've now realized that if you look at the lyrics, there's a historical shift that happens from the mighty days of yore on the Cimmerian steppe to withered the old gods grown pale and gray, never again for age beneath the sun. It's like the Queen riff comes in right before that. And does it play some role in punk? Is the Queen riff like, here comes the Enlightenment?
Okay, so there was never an intention for us to have a Queen riff. Now,
no, that's not true. There was. There definitely was. We love Queen.
So full disclosure, like when I was growing up as a kid, I mean, I would listen to some early Queen, and there was there was actually some like pretty cool like prog metal adjacent stuff.
I quit the band.
Prophet's Song, and then everybody knows that Stone Cold Crazy was like a proto thrasher. Like Metallica covered that later on, but no, I was never like a huge Queen fan. Okay. What's the actual timestamp on that? Because as far as I recall, when I was listening to the review, that was like after the lyrics had happened, and that was during Baron's solo.
I think it's between two sections of the lyrics, and
okay.
And I was wondering if there was kind of a word painting significance to it. That is.
Okay. Well, yeah. No, there's nothing like that, because I can tell you 100%. I've never intentionally tried to be influenced by Queen in any of my songwriting. So.
Liar.
Well, but okay. But leaving aside the Queen question, leaving aside the question of whether and to what extent it sounds like Queen, the riff, to me, it's sort of like, to me, the riff sounded kind of weirdly cheery, but also kind of tired. And there's a moment in the song, and it comes at the moment where there's a transition from the barbarous steppes to then this lament at modernity and being severed from that past. And I thought maybe you were, to what extent were you writing the lyrics and the riffs together? How's that? A broader question, which can extend to Turambar, too.
Oh, okay. Wow. So in Turambar, you're going to have to more ask Kevin a little bit, because those lyrics were all his.
Oh, but
so you guys collaborate you collaborate and like write the song and the riffs.
Well,
or the
we
together,
do.
But you don't map it.
Yeah. Well, okay. So here's the deal. Like, there are certain songs. Okay, so Kevin wrote all the lyrics to Turambar. That's all his. I wrote all the lyrics to Sumeria. That's actually probably the only one that I wrote all the lyrics to on this album. So the way that I go about doing, like, writing a song to begin with and then eventually doing the lyrics, I always start with the music first. And, I have a vision of, like, the imagery and the concept I want to evoke, and then I write the song based off that. And, very often I won't actually start at the beginning. I mean, Turambar started off with that middle section right there that we were just talking about with Kevin. That was like the first part of the song I wrote, I think. So I just kind of like write around that. And so in the case of Sumeria, like, I had this concept of, like, I wanted to have this, like, Conan the Barbarian steppe warlord, like, feel. But as I wrote the song progressively, when I was doing the lyrics, I remember I wrote the lyrics specifically after I'd sat down and, like, I'd had a couple of glasses of wine and I'd gotten into a very melancholy mood. I remember, and I sent these lyrics to Kevin, and Kevin's like, "Wow, this is like way more melancholy than anything I've ever seen you write before." I don't know if you remember that, but I do. And it just kind of, like, I guess it was just kind of like whatever the music brought forth, the lyrics then were trying to bring that even further into relief. And I originally wrote all the lines irrespective of the riffs, but I mean, it's an almost 15-minute song, right? So choosing where to put lyrics became a function of the riffs that corresponded to those lyrics the best. So I don't know if that answers your question sufficiently, but that would basically walk you through the songwriting and the lyric process right there in Samaria.
Yeah, so you had a lot of the riffs laid out. Then the riffs came to you basically as poetry, or sorry, the lyrics came to you sort of as poetry, as a self-contained unit. And then you worked on matching emotions and textures with the riffs.
Yeah, exactly. And I would pair up certain parts of it with the riffs that I thought it worked with the best in the context of the narrative.
Right. Well, in that context, in that context, I can see a significance for that riff which I dislike, because it has there's a dramatic significance there. Right?
Okay.
There's like passing of time, decadence, decadence, rationalism, modernity, severance of tradition, right? And all of this stuff appears as bright and sunny.
Okay. So actually, well, it depends. It depends because, I'm obviously, in the lyrical imagery of the song, I am playing with themes of both paganism and Christianity, as I'm sure you can see a little bit. And actually, I mean, to be honest, that's kind of the cover artwork right there too. It's Clu Cullen and it's Conan the Barbarian, but it's also kind of the piercing at the crucifixion. So there's
Longinus and Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And in kind of weaving those two themes together and having that kind of same concept, I have to say that I'm very indebted to Atlantean Codex on that, because they very much did the same thing. In their work. Temple of Catholic Magic is a classic one, or Sol Invictus on White Goddess. Yeah, or 12 stars in an azure gown. So anyways, that can seem like that section can seem like it's like a lament of modernity, but depending on the way you're looking at it, it could be kind of like the transition from paganism to Christianity. So just bringing that up there. But then later on, the lament is that there's no longer even the paganism. Like, we have the modernity, but we don't even have the solid paganism of Platonic philosophy and a whole bunch of other things like that. If I'm just giving you a small little window into the conception that I had for the song.
And I think no longer even the Christianity, right?
Well, exactly.
They scorn what you have. Christianity replaces paganism, and then Christianity, at least as I would see it, Protestantism mutates into modernity, and then we're left with nothing.
Yes, exactly. We have neither. We have neither the beautiful stuff about Christianity, or, for that matter, the things that were good about paganism. That was kind of the point.
I can hear that really connect.
That's what that song is about.
Yes, there's a couple of other things it's about too, but to be honest, the whole Scythian thing and the steppe thing is also, well, I'm Ukrainian, and it's kind of about Ukraine on a certain level, to be perfectly honest with you.
I was going to say there's a kind of the integration of pagan and Christian stuff has a very Slavic in general, and maybe Ukrainian specifically, vibe to it. So that makes sense to me. It's had you finished those lyrics before the Ukraine? Sorry, go, Death Metal Guy.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, let's continue on this thread, but then I wanted to get into, does this apply to the album as a whole? Is this record, because we had, spitballed back and forth, obviously this is, just because of its scope, naturally a sort of conceptual work. Is that the primary impulse, the transition of the pagan past into a sort of secular modernity, or is it even more abstract than that?
I think it's more abstract than that, and to be honest, I think so. We'll reunite all these concepts together in a few minutes. But if I really need to say what the essence of the album is, you actually nailed it when you did the review, where it's the entire idea of tragedy and the lost cause, the noble defeat, the entire idea that the secret of Cromlech is it's not the guy stabbing, but the guy getting stabbed. All that kind of stuff.
Oh, man, I fucking rule.
No, you did nail it.
But that's completely true, because listen, the mighty deeds of a champion or a hero or whatever are all great and fantastic, and nobody would ever say that that's like a wrong thing to use for edification. But what's even more powerful than that is doing the right thing, or doing feats of heroism, or doing something noble, even knowing that you're going to fail, even knowing that you're going to die. And to be honest, that is more than anything to me the central idea of the album.
Okay.
But aside from that, and that's consolidating it very, very shortly and concisely. I mean, we could really go into that at length, but I think you had questions about the war in Ukraine. So, I mean, at the time when I was writing the lyrics for that, it was 2014, 2015. So the initial stuff had started happening over there.
Yeah.
So, but none of the very recent stuff that happened, obviously.
The timing of the record is strange with that then, because a lot of the lyrics predate the recent stuff, but then the record comes out kind of just as that war takes an especially tragic turn, right?
Yeah. Well, increasingly as I grow older, I find out that there are no accidents in life. So.
Yeah. So in some ways, there is. The themes of this record transfer to a lot of what's happening in Eastern Europe right now, I think. Although that's not something we need to dwell with at length. Right?
Well, yeah, because it goes beyond that, obviously, because all good art is supposed to be transcendental and aim at something transcendent and not be confined to time. And even when it is confined to time, it has to echo elements of the eternal. So
yes.
it could completely have that could have completely have been irrelevant to the issue, and it still would have been as powerful.
Yeah, the art is supposed to illuminate the thing happening in the world, not the other way around. Oh my gosh, it's not oh my gosh, Ascent of Kings is really about the Ukraine war, right?
No, it's definitely not about the Ukraine war.
Yeah, that's certainly not what we. But yeah, I like what you say.
Cromlech iceberg explained.
Cromlech iceberg.
But yeah, so for Death Metal Guy, do you have anywhere? There are a couple places I guess we could start talking more about Turambar now. We could let Kevin talk about the lyrics.
Absolutely.
and music in Turambar.
Yeah, I mean, Turambar is clearly the crown jewel of the record. I mean, there's a lot of great moments across the whole thing, but it's a record about getting to Turambar, to me.
Yeah, I can't. As far as the music goes, I mean, Roman kind of intimated earlier that some of the stuff goes back to even when we were recording Ave Mortis, that middle section. I even think that middle section might have been some of the vocal melodies were some of my first ever. I don't write a lot of the vocal melodies, but I specifically remember writing some of the parts in the middle there. Not the higher range stuff that Roman forced me to do, but
well, the higher range stuff was just a harmony to what you were already singing. It was
I think that's correct. However, so musically, I didn't write any of the music, and it is interesting that, and Rowan and I have always talked about this a little bit actually. The way that I wrote lyrics for this, if I remember correctly, Roman, you had already known that musically you wanted to write something about Turambar, and I was reading The Children of Huron at the time, and I wrote the lyrics, and they just seemed to click for whatever reason. Roman has a knack for being able to just sort of put particular vocal melodies in certain spots, as he mentioned earlier. But the lyrics themselves, I mean, some of these go back to I can't even remember writing some of these, to be honest with you. And sometimes I go back and I read this, and I'm like, I wrote this? That's pretty good.
That's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. It is. It's it's kind of surreal in a way, going back and thinking, I don't know how I ever wrote these things. I guess you could tell sort of in some of the lyrics. I don't have I don't rely on meter or form necessarily. A lot of it's just kind of free form. Kind of comes out based on whether or not there's something interesting that I've read in a particular text. So when I was reading Children of Huron, I think the first line, it's beneath the starry vault of Arda, and starry vault of Arda is not. I lifted that from the text and just added things around it. And that tends to happen a lot. I'll read something based on what Roman's mentioned in terms of what he wants the concept of the song to be about, and I'll find a cool line and sort of build around that. And actually, there was another Andre from Into Oblivion actually helped to write some of these lyrics as well, which was interesting because him and I had previously worked on some lyrics that were never, we never published them, or they don't think they end up on any IO stuff or any Cromlech stuff either. But it was cool, that fact that him and I could work together on. I think there was about 8, maybe even 8 lines where I said to him, I can't do this, man. I don't know what I'm trying to say here anymore. And he took the lyrics and he twisted them around, and they came out great. And I think Roman, in fact, they're used as harsh vocals, if I remember. Yeah, Scaled Wing and Ashen Hurricane, Soaring Piracy to Morgoth's Pride, Thy Fear. That's actually Andre, if I remember correctly. Which is pretty cool.
Which member of Into Oblivion is Andre? Is that
the vocalist?
Okay, that's Viriato, or
Viriato. Yes.
Yeah, cool. Right.
Exposed.
Oops. Sorry, Andre. I mean Viriato.
Well, but it's it made sense because like the two of you guys both tend to have kind of a melancholic tilt to your writing, so you kind of influenced each other.
I think the thing that impressed me the most about Turambar was the way, probably the last, I don't know, maybe that sort of like finale there. The way the lyrics just worked perfectly with what Roman had written. And I don't even know that I had written the lyrics and had a full scope of what the song was like. I think I had finished them maybe even before you were done writing the song. And the way they just work so perfectly together. That seems to happen quite a bit with Roman and I. I can just kind of write something lyrically, and he takes it, and it just seems to work. It's Providence, I guess. Well, it must be.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been working together on this stuff for a while now. We kind of, we no, it's true. Like, there's a chemistry that happens over time where you kind of like, you maybe even subconsciously intuit what the other person is doing on a certain level, and it, it kind of comes together like that.
And just as an aside, so everybody knows who's listening, the lyrics, if you only have a digital copy and you are reading the lyrics on Encyclopedia Metallum, those lyrics are not right. I have spent countless days rereading them and thinking, I'm going to go crazy here. There's lots of mistakes. Lots of mistakes on False Peace, Born with Sword in Hand, and Turambar. Lines that are out of place. So
words that don't make any sense.
Yeah. Well, maybe they do. I don't know. I don't remember writing any of this stuff. So,
well, the thing is, when you're old and you have dementia, everything's a surprise. So,
yeah, it's great.
Kevin is
surprised.
Kevin is writing all the lyrics to Turambar on just some enormous scroll.
Yes. That would be awesome.
in a sort of fugue state, I assume.
Yes.
Well, you see, the reason everything took so long is it had to be recopied by monastic scribes in a Benedictine monastery.
Yes.
And they had to send someone to procure the red ink.
Yes.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Well, Kevin, more broadly. Sure. In terms of your writing process, I mean, we've heard a little bit about how it's assembled with you collaborating with Roman, but you just as a writer, where do you feel your influences really lie? I mean, we've talked about some of the material that you're drawing from, like Tolkien, Conan, some of that stuff, but in terms of just your style of prose, where do you think that comes from?
The style itself, I'm not sure. I know the content for each particular song I could definitely speak to. I'm the one member who, I love the Conan movies, particularly the first one, but I'm not a huge Conan guy. That might be shocking to some people. So most of the stuff that I write doesn't have anything to do with Conan. I know False Peace, Total War, a lot of that was based on Ovid's Eclogues, and inspiration I got from that. Born with Sword in Hand is actually just a retelling of the Song of Roland.
Okay.
Yeah, so
now, that being said,
might add some context to,
if I may just interject quickly about the end of Born with Sword in Hand, though, that was the final battle. That was the final battle speech of Constantine Paleologos at the siege of Constantinople.
Yes, that's right.
Oh,
so,
okay.
but it worked perfectly within the context of the song. So, and that was that's right. Roman added that. That was his addition. We just knew that with that song there needed to be just one more part, and he came with that. It was awesome.
If I recall, though, that was at your behest. Like, I didn't come up with that idea. You're like, we should add this in.
I don't remember. I think maybe. I don't know.
That's what I remember.
Is that what okay? You have a better memory than me, so if that's the case, I'll take the credit for that.
Well,
yeah, it was all me.
Kevin, you might have old age dementia, but I have alcohol-related dementia. So who knows who's
but I have
here.
both.
Oh, true.
So yeah, I mean, even and then Turambar, obviously it's the Tolkien influence. But looking back on some of the older stuff, I didn't write any lyrics on Ave Mortis, Myth and Stigma. I don't remember what my inspiration for that was. And then what did I write in Iron Guard? Was it just the
Iron Will?
Guard, Iron Will. Yeah, that was a whole assortment of things. I think I was just reading old ancient texts and stuff, and a lot of the Greek poets and Aeschylus or Euripides, and they've got lots of stuff in there that just sounds amazing, and it's just they're great one-liners, and you can start with this one line or manipulate it in a certain way and add your own stuff in and kind of set you off. But actually, in terms of style, it's just a free form. That's actually one thing Baron and I were discussing before he left, was he wanted me to do more, what's it called, Roman? Alliteration?
Oh yeah, he wanted you to do more alliteration. Yeah, for sure.
He was like, try some more alliteration, but and I actually tried it. We have a new song that's lyrics are done and a lot of it's done, and I tried the alliteration for the beginning of it, and it just wasn't my style, and it didn't come out well. And Roman and I just scratched it and rewrote the beginning of it. I just think that to do alliteration properly, you have to be a master at it. You can't just be a guy who says, I want to put 3 words that have D at the beginning together, and, death, despair, doom, and it just doesn't work. So I don't know,
that was pretty tight, dude.
Thanks, man. Yeah, thanks.
Well, Kevin, as we all know, is he's an experienced rapper. So
yes, that's right. Yeah, don't reveal who I am. 500 views on YouTube.
Doing a collaboration with Bobby Shmurda any day now. So more broadly, for everybody, the scope of the record, was that something sort of predetermined when you guys first started writing the material, or is that something that congealed as these songs came together? The idea of just this, massive, deliberately sort of bloated theatrical 70-minute record. Is it some songs that got out of hand, or was that the intent to do this massive defining performance from square one?
To be honest, the riffs just kind of lead me to where they end up going. It's kind of like, I don't even know. It's just everything happened as it was supposed to happen. There was every progression of riffs, every change in the song, every key change, everything like that. To me, it felt like it had to happen. I never predetermined how long a song is going to be. Well, except maybe I knew that Turambar was going to be long. I knew that Turambar was going to be long because of the scope of it. And I had a good idea that Samaria probably was going to be too. Now, to the length that they ended up being, no, I never intend to write a 20-minute song, a 19-minute song, a 15-minute song. It just happens that way. False Peace, I mean, to be honest, that was probably supposed to be shorter than it actually was, but the riffs just kind of, the necessity of the song progression lent it to end up being where it was. Same with Born with Sword and Hit. So it's a running joke in the band that I can't write a 2-minute song. It's impossible for me to write something under a certain time limit. And well, to be fair, I've done it before. Into Oblivion had some short ones back in the day, Stormcrow and Corpse Legions. That's on the first album. And even in the case of Iron Guard, we had Unshakable Weapon Thane, which was pretty short as well. But yeah, there's just an indescribable necessity to the length of the songs. There's no, I certainly don't try to make it intentionally difficult. That's definitely not what I'm trying to do. It just, I just know how things are supposed to relate on a riff-to-riff level, and then ultimately tying everything together. And sometimes it takes that amount of time to do it.
It's funny you mentioned false beats, actually. I was going to chime in there. I know that I was actually shocked at how short False Peace was, because I'm almost certain, in fact I am certain, that there's about a page of lyrics that didn't get used in False Peace because we didn't have a place to put them in. So, write longer songs, Roman.
Okay.
That's deep down on the Cromlech iceberg, the lost page of lyrics to False Peace. Small thing, but for my own edification, was there anything to the idea that the track list was set up to be like a DLP on vinyl? Because this struck me as something that was composed of 4 sides.
No, I never really think about things that way. To be honest, I just figured that if we're gonna release an album, I want to make sure that you're getting basically it's like you're getting what you're paying for out of it. Essentially, it's like if we're gonna release an album, I want to put as much content on it as possible. So there was no intention in a strict way to do a double LP. I'm just like, okay, if we're gonna do a disc, I want to have it full up. But
if anyone wants to release that, you're welcome to pick up the rights and release it for us.
We would
even just 5 copies.
5 copies. We would love somebody to fund our merchandise, etc.
We just want 5 shirts and 5 double LPs. That's all we want.
Yeah, that's it. It's a very very modest proposal right there.
That's right.
So, that I was going to ask that too, Death Metal Guy, because I've tried to keep thinking of the record in those terms. So otherwise, I guess. Then let's talk more about the. I don't know, like maybe it doesn't make any sense to get into it on a granular level, because in a way Roman's kind of already answered this, but. One of my main grievance about the record was the way these songs were structured, which it to me seemed like, I guess for listeners, to paraphrase my general criticism, I guess I found there's something like formalistic about it. Like, there was an interest, you guys were clearly interested in having sophisticated form and structure in the songs, but sometimes to me it seemed like there was an equation of complexity with structure that didn't make sense to me. I wanted to hear at certain times more clearly defined and direct kind of structures.
Okay,
but
fair. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that commentary. And so the first thing I want to say is actually, I mean, regardless of your views on the whole album, I did want to say that the assessment of it showed that you listened to it very in depth, and that was awesome. Like the fact that you gave it the time and the attention necessary to actually make an assessment of it was not many people do it that way. There are reviews out there that I'm like, what the heck are you listening to? Whereas you made a clear effort to listen to the album and assess it properly. That being said, the council has decreed that you will be wedgied, swirlied, and then stuffed in a locker for your opinions on the whole thing. Particularly saying things like opera is gay. I think I remember you saying something like that, minus Wagner, but which I wouldn't actually agree with, because I think there's other good opera. I think you were comparing some of the stuff we were doing operatically to Wagner and the Ring Cycle. And actually, I also, and the rest of us actually, also really like stuff outside of the Ring Cycle too. I mean, we've seen Tristan and Isolde and Siegfried and a bunch of other ones. Heck, actually, maybe later we can get to Jake saw a Handel opera once. Okay, you remember which one I'm talking about? Yeah. There's a funny side story about that right there. Just honestly, modern opera companies, I don't know what they're doing with their setting in terms of costumes and stage pieces. Like, the music is the music, right? But never mind. Anyways,
but yeah. So anyway, I wanted to hear your reply. I figured that was coming. But what more? How would you explain the way you structured these?
I mean, essentially the way I structure everything goes down to, like, as I said before, I start off with a concept of what I want the song to evoke, generally speaking. And sometimes, like, that's a little more grandiose, and sometimes that's a little more simple. Like, False Peace, Total War, I just wanted to write a thrasher. Like, straight up. That's what it was. But by that same token, I did want to have the False Doom start at the beginning. And do a couple of things like that. And, you get into Samaria and Turambar, and there's already, like, more of, like, a broad conceptual thing that I'm trying to go for. Patria definitely had a concept in mind before I wrote that as well. And then once I have that concept in mind, I just start writing riffs, and then I think to myself, okay, where does this riff end up fitting in most? And, typically speaking, I end up writing towards the middle of the song and then branching out from there, which may seem kind of weird, but when Tolkien wrote Lord of the Rings, like, the first imagery he had was that of the Black Rider seeking out the hobbits, and, like, he just built the whole thing around that. So it's not like the most atypical ideal in terms of writing things, but yeah, that's essentially how things kind of go. And, like, I don't know, like, I go riff to riff, and I definitely I definitely like using contrast between riffs. There's no question about that. And some of the things you were talking about, like, drawing back at certain points or whatever, I think it's drawing back is kind of necessary sometimes for the progression of the song, because I don't know, you can't have, like, an 8-minute or 20-minute or 15-minute song, like, a song that's fairly lengthy. You can't have one that's just, like, on 10 the whole way through. It's
right.
It just ends up becoming white noise at a certain level, so you do need to draw back, go forward, etc. Honestly, at the end of the day, I do know some music theory, but my music theory mainly comes from things that it mainly comes from me having learned that there are names for the things I already do. Right. It's like
the classic metalhead music theory.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh yeah, that's a fifth, and that's a fourth, and that's a third, and that's, like, obviously they're broader ideas, like, counterpoint and the way and song structure and things like that are, you don't need to know too much about music theory to understand them. But yeah, we're not really, like, most of us are not really tutored musicians, and if any music theory we know has really come as an after fact.
Okay, so to get more concrete about it then,
yes.
For listeners, so examples of songs written from the middle, I think Turambar sounds like the go-to for that, right?
Yeah.
And so there's this just absolutely glorious section in the middle from about 7 minutes to 10 minutes that has the Kevin punishing vocal performance, and then probably during the review, I think I probably said, why doesn't the song just end there? But the interesting thing about it is it keeps going, and listening back to it, I do appreciate that more. You have the middle of the song's written out from the middle, which is this massively climactic moment. And then instead of just, like, doing a falling action like Into Oblivion or just wrapping it up like most other bands would, you just start thrashing. And out of that, out of the thrash, there's, like, another theme that starts to coalesce, which almost sounds like a death thrash version of one of the themes from the Lord of the Rings movies. The
for legal reasons, I cannot confirm or deny that assessment. And actually, it actually wouldn't even make sense, because that theme is, well, allegedly that would be the Mordor theme, and this is all stuff that's happening in the First Age. But that's all my lawyer has allowed me to say about the whole thing.
Well, okay, so what gave you the feeling that the song needed to keep going from that immensely climactic middle section? Was it something about the lyrics, or just gut feeling that now we got to have Turin get out there and kill some dudes?
It just felt like it wasn't done, to be honest, and I'm very happy about that, because the finale on Turambar is quite frankly, it's one of my proudest moments, musically speaking, at all, and it's definitely one of the best performances. It is probably the best vocal performance Kevin has ever done. It's just like it's the peak of everything we've wanted to do as a band so far. So I'm glad that it came to that point. to be honest, on a more gut level, I just felt like before that the song was very slow to mid-paced, and I wanted to ratchet up the intensity for a bit just to, balance it out. It's like a lot of the riffs at that point had been relatively, pentatonic, conventionally melodic, and I wanted to throw some chromatic stuff in there to balance it out. That would be my gut assessment of it. And it ended up, that part is good, but really it's most important as being a transition to the stuff that happens at the end.
Right, and so at the end, is that what you're describing as the finale of the song?
Yes.
Okay, so you're saying, yes, the vocal performance there, that it can sound kind of like a falling action thing, but Kevin is giving it all he's got there also. Again. Yes. Yeah. It's
he just has to. It's like the part demands it. It's funny because it's not a falling action. It's actually one of the most intense moments on the album in a certain way. The only way in which it's a falling action is like, okay, it's probably also one of the slowest parts on the album, but that doesn't really detract from its intensity at all. I was kind of
it transfers weight to the vocals, maybe. The guitars are doing more of a supporting role, and a lot of the weight falls on the declamation, the vocals.
Yes, I think that's a very accurate assessment.
Okay, so that makes sense. Let's think about another one with like weird structural decisions. So you're saying False Peace, Total War, that's a thrasher. It sounded to me like that song sort of, like there were two songs sort of sutured together there. Is that an accurate assessment, or did you want to just do a sharp discontinuity because you thought that would be heavier?
Well, again, sometimes I do sharp discontinuities for the sake of contrast.
Sure.
So that's definitely a thing that I do. I don't try to rely on that, but I definitely do it. If you go through there are melodic themes that tie the whole thing together, though. It's definitely like it's not meant to just be like a bunch of riffs that happen and I wrote a song. There's a unity between what's in there, from the beginning to the end. So no, it's definitely not two songs sutured together. I mean, heck, on a certain level, the slash is in there in the song title just because I thought that looked cool.
Yeah. Do you have to pronounce it? False Peace / Total War.
Well,
it's more metal.
Yes, I never do, but it looks cool.
Yeah,
that's what it comes down to. Which, I mean, to be honest, at the end of the day, I think that's might be one of the ultimate reasons why anybody ever does slashes or brackets or parentheses or both in a song title, just because it kind of looks cool. Aside from absolutely right there. Yes.
Yeah. All right, death metal guy, you have anything about the structures or any other aspects of the guitar-based writing?
Not especially. Roman's done a really good job sort of explaining his process. I guess I'm really interested in sort of a broader question about the creation of the record, which is, it feels to me that on a record of this scope, there has to be a sort of bracketing concept to it. And we've talked about it thematically, but I mean also musically. So would you characterize this, Roman, as something that is deliberately operatic? I know that we were talking about your interest in that kind of music and that sort of production. I guess what I'm saying is, do you feel that this is a record that aspires to this loftier sense of being a very whole, self-contained epic, or do you still personally see it as just a collection of thematically linked compositions?
Okay, so it's interesting because the distinction between those two things can be a pretty fine one, to be honest. As soon as we're linking things thematically, there can be this entire concept of a broader, more operatic linking of everything together. But I guess what I would say is, like, we're always trying to aspire for, the heights that we can reach, no matter what. And the thing is that, was there a deliberate attempt to make this kind of into this more operatic kind of thing? And all I can say to that is we wrote the songs, and then eventually I arranged them. I arranged the track list, and even over time wrote the songs a little bit to reflect a unifying concept between them all. So, for example, one of the riffs in Patria, the final riff in Patria, is just a different version of the riff at the end of Turambar. It's the exact same melody. It's just like it's played as like a more of a chuggy chord riff as opposed to like a dual guitar doom riff. So there was definitely a concept of having unity between the songs on some level, though it's not like and then like Patria going into Born with Sword in Hand. So Baron wrote the first couple riffs with Born and Sword in Hand, and I deliberately made some of the riffs in Patria echo that. It was really supposed to be an intro to Born with Sword in Hand. And live we would always play those two together that way. Hey Kevin, have we talked before about the intro to Patria? On a podcast?
I don't think so. Maybe.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
I'm not sure.
Remember? Okay, remember how you didn't know that Patria had a 3-minute intro?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Okay, go on.
Yeah, so I remember the album's taken forever to come out, and we sit down one day. I think it's Roman and I I think I'm in the studio, about to lay some lyrics down, and they're like, "Oh, listen to the beginning of Patria," and this acoustic guitar starts up. So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, this is nice. And a couple minutes go by. And then Patria, that I know, kicks in. And I'm like, wait a minute. We're waiting for this record to come out, and you literally just wrote a 3.5-minute acoustic intro into this song? I had no idea that this ever existed.
So Kevin was...
I heard it... Yeah, go ahead.
He was convinced that the entire album had been delayed because I stopped the album to record a 3-minute intro that hadn't existed before.
The intro to the intro is true battery.
That's right.
There we go. So the funny thing is we'd actually played it live a few times, but Kevin forgot. Surprise.
I don't remember that. I'm sorry.
I swear there's a video of it somewhere, man. That's all I'm going to tell you.
No way. I don't believe it. I don't believe
well,
it.
We also played it in the studio, man, when we practiced. I remember us just standing there looking at each other while he played it.
Really?
So that's a question. Right. How do the instrumentals fit in? So part of the pacing, right, in terms of creating this, taking the existing tracks and sculpting them into this overarching whole, how do the instrumentals work in the pacing, and how do they work live? Do you have Kevin just harass the crowd throughout the entire instrumental?
No, live is the best, because it's like 15 minutes of just instrumental. I can catch my breath, go grab a beer, and usually I just hang out in the crowd with whoever's there, and we headbang together. So I love the instrumentals. Yeah,
they don't make you carry a torch or anything.
Conduct the live.
Kevin just lock eyes.
Listen.
Yeah, I just stare at Brandon.
I just lock eyes with him.
Used to wave a flag, I remember that, the flag, but we've lost the flag.
Much as Kevin is very often compared to Nemtheonga, he is not actually Nemtheonga.
That's true. Although we're both Irish.
Yes. There's a lot of similarities, actually, but regardless of that, actually it's cool. Yeah, he gets into the crowd and he just kind of hypes them up, and it's actually perfect. The only thing, obviously, is that certain parts of instrumentals, like for example, when we play Patria live, we almost always just skip the 3-minute acoustic intro because there's just that's why Kevin thought that there was no intro there for a while, because he forgot the one time we played it in Oshawa.
Oshawa.
Yeah.
How would I ever remember that show?
Yeah, that's a good question, Kevin.
Okay. It sounds like there's a story there. We need to hear it.
Maybe a little bit.
Oshawa was pretty good. I remember that was the first time we premiered Samaria, I think.
Yeah,
and we were wearing the Knights Templar. That was the Halloween show.
It was a Halloween show, so
and there was a bunch of members of the Star Wars Expanded Universe at the show.
Yes, so because it was a Halloween show, There was a guy that looked like he wasn't trying to be Darth Maul, but he looked like he was Darth Maul. And then there was a guy that...
People in the Toronto scene will know who we're talking about.
Yes. And then there was a guy that looked like he had the death sentence on him in 12 systems. But so anyways, it's just like, yeah, it was a little bit funny because, like, yeah, there's all this random Star Wars themed stuff that seemed to be popping out of the night. And aside from that, yeah, obviously, well, we probably got a little bit drunk and
yeah, it was one of those shows where one of the few shows, I think Rochester and Oshawa were the only show where I was able to stay the night and not have to drive home, so that made for good times.
I just remember at that show there's this one...
Jake, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say this really funny anecdote from that Oshawa show. There's this one obnoxious drunk guy who was trying to rile the crowd up and start a mosh pit when, like, the first act was up. And so no one else was feeling it. And then Kevin just grabbed him by the throat and threw him onto someone's table. And then there's just like a bunch of women sitting at the table drinking beer. And just all the beer glasses, all the beer pitchers knocked over.
Wasn't there some guy outside? Wasn't there some guy outside trying to sell his polka records at like 2 a.m.
Yes.
And remember we were in the parking garage and there was like that fake, like there was somebody walking around with like an ATM machine, like, you know, with one of those,
Jake fell for it.
Yeah, and it wasn't.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, you fell for the scam right there. That was that was a crazy night. There were
yeah, just to like paint a picture of it. Oshawa is almost like the Detroit of Canada or Ontario.
Yeah.
Someone had a fake ATM.
Well,
not an ATM, a card reader.
Sorry, I misspoke. A debit card.
Card
machine.
Reader.
And then it was a card reader, and they were walking around the parking garage claiming to be taking payment for the cars that were in there.
Even though it was a free parking night.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
Yeah.
You fell for that?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I guess I was kind of on the spot. I realized the clues were there. Like, wait a minute, there's no gate stopping me from driving through.
And the sign says free after 6 or something like that.
I didn't see the sign, so.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I was.
No, the only thing I remember about the end of that, that show pissed me off so much that, like, you guys had a hotel room right beside, like, I could have easily crashed there, and it was like 3 or 4 a.m., and it's like at least an hour drive home. And it's like, oh, you want to stay the night? And I said, fuck no. And I burnt rubber and got the fuck out of there. I was so pissed the fuck off.
Oh, man. Well, hey, listen, Jake. Jake, it's okay. Everybody has a Seinfeld
I think we're
moment.
derailing this.
No, this is what we want. Like,
Yeah, that's interview content.
Obviously, there's. Yeah. Well, so I am curious about the logistics of playing this stuff live, because you're talking about, you know, playing Patria. Are you guys ever? Do you guys ever play Ascent of Kings, the longer instrumental?
Oh yeah,
Yep.
100%.
So when you guys are designing a set, I mean, just in my experience, like, you know, you guys have a little bit more weight behind you than any of the bands that I play in, but in a lot of cases, I'm just playing like half-hour sets here and there. Are you guys just only playing when you have the opportunity to play for like nearly an hour? Because the idea of doing a 12-minute instrumental in a half-hour set just that sounds rough. But what is the live situation like?
Okay, so actually this is funny because this I can answer this question in a broader sense by also including Into Oblivion. When Into Oblivion first started playing live, I mean, you know the length of our songs. They've always been long. And I remember, we've had shows where we literally played 2 songs. because we had like a half-hour set, and it's like, okay, we get to play Dawn's Conquest and Creation of a Monolith, and that's it. You know, that's the entire set. So that has definitely happened before. But at this point, like, we're very often booking our own shows or working with other guys that you know, like, we're friends with, so we always make sure that we have enough time to play live. You know, we're always playing like 40-minute to an hour sets. So definitely half hour is like out of the question. Like, unless some really big band came through Toronto and we got to open for them and they're like, oh, you can only play a half hour set. So in that case, we'd choose shorter songs. But you know, when we did the last one, we played Ascent of Kings live. We actually stood there while the I was not a fan. Okay, everybody remembers this. Okay,
Here we go.
Airing of grievances. Yes, airing of grievances. Baron was insistent that we should play the album recorded versions of all the intros and all the instrumental parts that we couldn't play live. So like the vocal intro in Samaria, the acoustic part in Patria, that kind of stuff. And I was not a fan of this. I'm just like, dude, why don't we just put like a CD player on stage and play that the whole time and just like drink instead? You know, it's like
that would have been great.
Yes, it would have been great. So anyways, this really bothered me, but it didn't seem to bother anybody else. So anyways, we just ended up standing there in between songs sometimes while the album played the intro to various songs. So yeah, that's one of the few times that we'd have like a full arrangement on things like that, because otherwise we just kind of have to wing it. You know, we can't have it's a little more difficult to get a violinist or a cello player on stage for some of the things that we're doing, and well, I don't have 4 arms and I can't play 2 guitars at the same time.
Not yet.
Well, not with that attitude, you can't.
There we go.
I remember, actually, I remember the first time you guys played Ascent of Kings, the instrumental. It was, I forget what the venue was, and we had been playing, and I had mic issues for the entire time, as always, because I'm an idiot with a mic. So I'm pulling cords out, and things are happening. And they're like, oh, we're going to play this song. It's an instrumental. So I left the stage, and the sound guy came over to me and was like, I'm really sorry, man. Is everything okay? Why'd you leave the stage in a big huff and puff? I'm like, I didn't leave the stage in a huff and puff. He's like, what are you talking about? You're supposed to be up there singing. I'm like, no, this is an instrumental, and I'm going to sit here and just drink my beer and hang out with the crowd. But I remember thinking that was really funny. I was so mad at him.
Yes,
So also in terms of logistics.
Yeah.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was going to say Kevin's demand for the next album is going to be more instrumentals, because he gets more beer breaks.
just work his way out of the band, completely.
So sorry, go on about logistics.
Yeah, another logistical question. Just as a person that plays relatively frequently, how much of a challenge is it to keep songs of that scale tight and on track for a live environment? Because I'm typically playing kind of standard metal length songs, 4 to 7, maybe 8 minutes for a long one, and making sure everyone is really tight on an 8-minute song can be kind of a challenge. Once you start ballooning to 15 to 20 minutes. How much of a concerted effort is it to keep practicing and keep that material really tight? Because I just think that in any given practice, if you're doing Turambar, is it a matter of just getting to play the song front to back a few times, or is it more just touching up certain movements of it as needed?
Okay, good question. So, I'll let Jake and Brandon, add their input after this, because they've had to learn all this stuff. And the thing is that for me, it's just, I know how the song's supposed to go. Because I've written it. But I feel like for me, it's just kind of like one riff naturally flows into the other one, and if you remember everything properly, then you remember how to play the song. You just play it that way live. Now the thing is, sometimes. Especially when we're doing new material and we're practicing in the space, we'll have to have moments where, we forgot where we were, and then we need to go back, and then I remind everybody what the riff and the order is or whatever, and we just kind of go from there. And once we've done that enough times, I think the other guys will attest to the fact is you just remember it. You remember it because if I start with this riff goes into that riff goes into that riff. It's amazing. Sometimes we will have not played forever, and the muscle memory just kicks in. It just kicks in, regardless, haven't listened to it, haven't played it in forever, and it's just it's like a completely involuntary automatic reaction. And the thing is, live, I mean, listen, these are long songs, they're technically demanding. To be honest, we probably make some mistakes along the way. In fact, I think more often than not we do. But the thing is, there's something about the energy and the presence of what we're doing at that time that like in the live setting, it just completely overshadows any technical errors that we have.
Yeah,
it's funny.
just
It
think,
sounds like you could have just been talking about writing a punk song.
Hey man, listen, we came from that we came from that background on a certain level, right? You know, like we all, well, I mean, not Kevin so much, but you know, Jake and Brandon and I and Andre and Into Oblivion, we were all listening to like, you know, a bunch of punk and hardcore and all of that. You know, that's really the background we
Like
came
AFI.
No,
AFI. Oh, here we go.
No, I know you guys as a maximalist long hair band have always had an appreciation for more sort of like minimalist short hair stuff, which I always liked about you guys. You know, the Iljarn references and whatnot. But yeah, the funny thing is you just described playing like Titanic, like 5-part harmony, 15-minute songs in exactly the same way I would describe like trying to remember how to play Where Eagles Dare. You know, but anyway, so someone else was going to say something.
Yeah, no, I think also part of it is just like we've been playing together for so long. Just like, I mean, for years we were playing, like we were practicing every single week on Friday for years, and I think there's just such a connection at a point where, yeah, like the muscle memory kicks in too. But I think we also just like we have cues we pick up off each other. Like, yeah, I'm pretty sure Roman and Jake can both like confirm that there's like little things we'll pick up while we're playing that like immediately like, oh, here comes that part, or like oh, we're gonna change right here and this and that, like where it's like it's just that connection of just being really, really tight by knowing each other at this point, I think.
Yeah,
100%. They can intuit where I'm going in a song. Jake already even knows like what kind of drum parts to do before I even tell him at this point.
Yeah, I've learned Roman's pattern of songwriting now. I could predict how long a new riff will persist for, when a change will happen, but I'll probably forget and rely on Roman to remind me when there's new songs being written. I'm sure he gets frustrated repeating some riff sections in a loop until I memorize it.
I think that would be one thing to stress is that, like, we talked about this in the last interview too, but in a sense, Cromlech might be one of the best rehearsed bands ever because you guys have such solid friendships and have been playing together for so long, and because you were just in the shed perfecting the Ascent of Kings stuff for so long. So, like, it kind of makes sense that you can just remember the songs.
Yeah, and like Brandon alluded to, and just to stress further, I mean, it's not happening as much now because, as Roman said at the beginning, some of us have families and it's harder to get us all together. But like when Ascent of Kings was, when the songs on that album were being written, when we were preparing for recording, when we were preparing for the live show, we religiously practiced every Friday, or like every week, usually on a Friday. And every week we would just, on that one practice, go through the full album from beginning to end, not take any breaks, maybe take a 5 to 20-minute break and like have a beer, hang out, and then sometimes play it a second time.
Damn.
Yeah, it's like, oh, dude, we would be, and especially that place in winter, it's okay, but in summer, you're sweating, man, or at least I am.
No, that's just you, man.
Yeah, I know, that's just me. I know.
That's why you got to do the whole thing in the impetuous ritual diapers.
Impetuous what?
They wear loincloths on stage.
Oh, right. Okay, yes. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No shirts, no masters. Okay, cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right on. But yeah, there's really something to be said. I think we've said this time and time again before. This band has always been, in its prior incarnation and its current incarnation, it's always been a brotherhood, and so that really lends itself to the chemistry that we have. Like, you know, I was friends with Kevin for a good couple of years before he joined Cromlech. You know, it's same kind of deal with anybody that's been in the band. Like, Jake, Brandon, and Andre and I, we've known each other since high school. Over half our lives at this point.
Yeah. So with that in mind, let's now that we've covered Ascent of Kings pretty well, let's pivot over to Mormegil and the future.
May I for a second?
And I guess, what was that?
There's one more grievance. that I'd like to discuss.
Okay.
You knew it was coming.
Yeah.
So, the vocals.
I like
curious.
the vibrato.
All right. So I'm
I'm throwing the black metal guy under the bus. He has to deal with this one.
That's okay. That's okay.
I'm ready.
I'm not mad. I've listened to your take on the album in Iron Guard, and I do think it's really interesting because, from what I gather, you seem to think that I do it on purpose.
Yeah.
I don't.
He does.
I don't.
He does.
I don't.
Actually,
He actually does.
So, go ahead, Roman.
I said you had a deliberate effort to tone your vibrato down on this album.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
Yeah. So I don't know. I actually don't know what happened between Ave Mortis and later recordings. I had taken singing lessons with a trained opera singer. So I think sometimes that might be where the excessive vibrato comes in. And it is funny because I remember after we played in Malta, it had been recorded, and the first time we listened to it, we had all agreed as a band that I had too much vibrato on my voice. And since that time, I haven't been able to take that vibrato off. I don't know why. I think it's partly because of some of the training I had done. And when I push really hard, like I could take a different technique. Like I think you had said in the review, like you want me to declaim more than sing sometimes. I think I've taken that approach. Go ahead, but I don't think that it's effective. And I think Roman and Baron were really push as hard as you can. And for whatever reason, that vibrato just comes out. I don't know why, but it's not feigned. It's not okay. I'm going to do this for effect or to have this aesthetic on my voice that's like different from something else that has been produced before. It just came out, and that's why I just sing like that, for good or for bad.
You're possessed by a god, and he demands the vocals, the vibrato, right?
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, that's okay. That makes sense, and based on like, so basically. Like in certain contexts, right? Like you could see constant vibrato as an affectation or something. There's a very famous, there's a really great review of the Arcade Fire where the guy's like, why won't the guy ever stop doing vibrato, right? It's supposed to be peak emotion, but he just does it. He just does it all the time. But of course, the guy from the Arcade Fire isn't actually pushing his voice to the limits. And in this case, it sounds like Kevin's vibrato comes out because you guys have always been pushing him to go as hard as he possibly can, and for whatever reason, it's just innate to his style. Fair enough. Yeah, it's
that's interesting.
I think I've been like, I think the vibrato is making more sense to me over time. I think sometimes it does weird things to. I think it does weird things to the pitch in relation to the guitars sometimes because there's so much going. Yeah, because there's so much going on in the guitars under it that, like, even if the center of your vibrato is on center, it interacts weirdly with the other layers. However, I mean, I sort of pitched this idea to them in the last interview. There is a kind of natural harshness and weirdness to it, and it's like, maybe the problem is me. Maybe this is just a new way of doing it, and I need to wrap my head around it.
That's right. The problem is you.
Yeah, the problem could be it is a cool, unique thing, and I think when I listen to the record, I mean, the death metal guy also stressed how much strain your voice was under when we were reviewing it,
100%.
and he knows better than me because I can do some vocals or whatever. I've done vocals in bands a little bit, but he's used to recording and he's done stuff with a lot of different people, and he could really tell that the whole point was that the strain your voice was under.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Roman.
So, regarding Mormegil, I guess the obvious question to ask is, what now? Because it's got to be a weird spot for a band that's coming off this huge thing that's just so epic in scope and so defining for a band. What do you guys feel the natural move is here? To do something that's maybe a little bit more understated and straightforward, or to try to top the last one? Is it like a perpetual escalation, or are you guys trying to make a little more contrast?
Well, I can speak from my perspective, which is just essentially that whether I was doing into Oblivion or Cromlech or the much mentioned but never yet released Dungeon Synth project that I got with another friend of mine, Kevin, who's also
I started that.
Yes, he did start that. And I originally didn't have time for it, but then I joined it and took it over.
And took it from me.
Yes, and now Kevin's no longer in that. So that's called Mental Tarma, by the way. I'm sure I've mentioned that before. Me and the other Kevin are working on that. That's going to come out hopefully sometime soon. We're pretty made some good progress on that. But
3 of those songs are mine.
I know. We've had to like
I named the band.
We had to backwards engineer all the recordings that we did to try to figure out what the heck you were playing.
That's crazy.
It was painstaking.
Thank you.
It hurts. He finally put me through the same pain I put him through. But anyways, I guess, with respect to the form that each band takes, we're always trying to push boundaries in each one. So Mormegil is going to continue the legacy and the spirit of Cromlech. It's funny, it kind of links back to earlier where we talked about the the supposed intentional difficulty of Cromlech, which is really just the accidental and one might say essential inherent difficulty of Cromlech. The thing is that I remember we did this one interview with a blog called Metal Squadron back in like 2013, 2014, and we were trying to be total like 90s black metal dicks while we were answering all the questions. We were trying to give like really short answers and like non-answers and all that. and so the first time we gave it to him, he's just like, "Listen, you got to give us like more answers than than the first time around. You got to pad this out a little bit." And so I remember. Basically, he was talking about the length of the songs, and the response we had to him is that Cromlech is a series of battles that the listener has to endure through, and that will essentially always remain the case with a lot of our music. Not because I'm trying to make it intentionally difficult, but because that's just the spirit of the band. Like, it's a battle for us to play it. Kevin always said that the closest thing to him going into battle was going on stage with us. So we're just trying to bring that experience to the listener, and that will definitely continue in Mormegil.
All right. So how do you intend to... going back to part of what the death metal guy said, is the way forward to make the battle even more intense, or do you plan roughly writing songs in a similar vein to Ascent of Kings?
Well, essentially what it comes down to is that, every song, as I said before, has a concept that I'm trying to achieve beforehand. And the song just kind of writes to fit that. So I'm not really thinking about it in terms of the level of intensity. It will just come out the way that it does. But I'm going to try to push boundaries in the sense of like expressing things to the fullest possible way I can express them. Mm-hmm. That's really what the thing is at the end of the day. One thing, Kevin, if you remember you saying this when we restarted after Baron left, was that it's kind of like it speaks to what you were talking about before about starting a new project after this huge legacy of another one behind it. It's for him anyways. It was an exciting thing to found a band because we'd already done that, but for Kevin this is the first time he's ever been a founding member.
Yeah, that's right. And I would say even in terms of lyrics, nothing's really changed. I've written lyrics for one song already, and drawing on the same sources of inspiration. I don't see much change in the way I approach anything lyrically. I'll definitely draw on a lot of Guns N' Roses influences. Davey Havok's been a real inspiration for me. Some of those Sing the Sorrow lyrics.
Davey Havok.
Talking about those bangers, those one-line bangers that really get me going, get the lyrics started for me. Anything from Sing the Sorrow on. I'm gonna make sure.
We've all been listening to Black Sails in the Sunset on repeat.
Yeah.
I was so happy to hear that, dude.
Okay, so let's get into a little bit of backstory about that whole joke right there. So I remember, joke, implying, but I remember years back, Kevin and I tried to sit down and Kevin, how did we find out that we'd both listened to AFI back in the day?
I have no idea. It was one of those moments, you have a few drinks, you're like, I used to listen to this, did you? And Roman was like, yeah, I did too. I'm like, oh, thank goodness.
Were you guys in a hot tub when you had this conversation? Or
yes.
We might have been in a sauna, actually, for all I know.
We were naked.
Oh.
Even better. No. Kevin hates saunas. He hates the concept of just sitting there and sweating.
It's actually stupid. But being naked, that's different.
Yes, exactly. But regardless, yeah. So it just came up one day, and when I was in early high school, it was funny how it worked for me because a lot of my introduction to a lot of punk and metal and stuff like that was one of my uncles who, was like a Gen Xer, and he played in bands, and he made me a couple mix CDs and stuff like that, and that's how I got into the Misfits when I was 13 or 14 or so. And I remember I got into AFI in high school because I wanted to hear more stuff that sounded like the Misfits, and Black Sails in that era was kind of like the horror punk kind of stuff. And I used to really like that. And then at some point, Kevin and I both realized, oh yeah, we used to both listen to AFI back in the day, and we sat down back in 2014, 2015 in the band space trying to listen to it again, and we just couldn't. We just we just had a viscerally negative reaction to Davey Havok's vocals, but then for some reason it came back after Baron left the band. It was.
It was weird.
It was a really weird timing kind of thing. And then all of a sudden,
they both grew devil locks. It was terrible, man.
Well, the devil lock is the one hairstyle you can still do when you have male pattern baldness, because it just goes from the back of the head, right?
The widow's peak is an asset. Yeah,
exactly.
Oh, we're Norwood Zero over here.
Norwood Zero.
I'll also add that I remember that listening session. Correct me if I'm wrong, Roman. We pivoted to Krieg at one point, and we listened to the live Krieg album, and we're like, wow, we can actually hear what's happening in this record. Early Krieg, anyways, but I'm fairly certain that was the same listening session.
So part of where this joke crosses over is that if you obviously being into black metal, there's always some crossover where, because of the legacy of Absurd and Iljarn and other bands like that, you get a familiarity with RAC. And the thing is, a lot of RAC ends up sounding like pop punk at the end of the day, which is really funny due to common roots and Boy or whatever. And so the thing is, we've gone through these there are distinct different types of RAC bands that sound like different pop punk bands. Some of them sound like Blink-182. Some of them sound like The Offspring, surprisingly. Some of them sound like it's you just go through the whole list, and then we realize that some of them just sound like AFI.
Damn, I gotta hear those.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which is so I mean that kind of spurred this on, because we just thought this was a hilarious concept. I was listening to some song, and I'm like, this is literally just an AFI song from Art of Drowning, except it has some rough German vocals over the top.
I found an Art of Drowning riff in something the death metal guy had written.
No way.
Yeah, yes, and he had not heard it. Yes.
Yeah, I did not come up with AFI. I've grown to appreciate a lot of the sort of emo adjacent stuff that was popular in high school, but I didn't listen to any of it back then. So there's been a lot of occasions now where I've accidentally written, AFI or even like far, far worse stuff than that.
Accidentally.
Oh man!
No, deliberately, but I thought it was Bill Skernier at the time.
Oh, dude, that's Bill Skernier.
You thought it was Bill Skernier in the dark, right?
Dude, Bill Skernier has like so much crossover with that stuff. It's hilarious. It's like it's funny how that stuff ends up. Man, it's a shame that we don't have Andre on here because that guy was an emo kid back in high school. So,
Who?
Viriato, sorry.
Right.
So, but in more concrete terms, are there specific musical ideas that you're looking to expand on in Mormegil that maybe you didn't have the opportunity to yet in Cromlech? I mean, is it a matter of there's technical boundaries you want to push or songwriting techniques you haven't gotten around to yet? What in a more granular sense, what do you guys want to tackle?
I don't really think about writing songs in terms of the techniques, to be honest. Like it's usually just like I have a feel beforehand, and I fill in after I fill in the blanks on the feel that I have after that essentially. But like sometimes like I will use certain technique stuff because I think it's cool. Like for example, the title track for the next one, which if I'll tell you, black metal guy, if you weren't a fan of the Ascent of Kings, man, this is just like the title track on this one's like a 15-minute version of Born with Sword in Hand on a certain level.
Nice.
It's like twice as long and like actually surprisingly keeps the intensity up more or less the whole way through. That one I've been putting like a lot of like wood temple into that one right there. I guess like that influence kind of came out right there. I always really liked Voices from Pagan Mountains, and Kevin turned me on to what was the 2014 one, Forgotten Pride. That one. So like that's kind of coming in.
Is Wood Temple the sort of Gravelandy band that?
Yes.
Is this the one that briefly had Rob Darkin in it or something?
Yes.
Yeah, there was some crossover between the two of them. It's basically the Austrian knockoff of Graveland, but it's more than that because whereas Graveland very much emphasized the martial aspects, Wood Temple expands a lot more along the atmospheric aspects of Graveland. I don't know. I've been listening to a lot of Wood Temple, a lot of Infamous. I've gone back and listened to Troubles the Skull a lot. So that's been a solid one for me lately. But all that stuff's coming out. Like the thing with like your thing with songwriting is always just that you've internalized so much stuff over all the time that you've listened to music that sometimes you can only discern where an influence comes after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like Queen.
Yeah, like Queen. Exactly right. Yes. Yeah, like Queen. Let me finish. The thought.
Okay.
Because the closer of this album, I've already got the finale written for it, and I'm trying. I guess more or less, I had this idea of. No, I wasn't trying to outdo Turambar, but on a certain level, I was. So it's like it's. I was trying to create something emotionally crushing and just heart wrenching, and generally the barometer that I had for that was the finale of Turambar. So I was trying to exceed that. So the outro of the next album is supposed to exceed that.